It's Simone from PinchAPennyGardener, and today is another picking day. But you know what? I was thinking, do you ever wonder, once I do all this picking, what happens with all of the crop? I can remember when we first did this, when we first started in the way back in the beginning, when we planted all this celery. And I thought, 8 plants, how much celery am I going to get? I got so much celery that I didn't know what to do. I had to give it to my neighbor. I had to figure out how to make soup. And then I even had to figure out how to dry it. So in today's episode, I'm going to show you what to do with your crops, but also I'm going to show you 3 drying techniques. 1 is using the oven technique. 2 is using the dehydrator. And 3 is using the air dry technique. But before we go outside to start picking, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can teach you these 3 techniques. Okay, so we have a lot of picking to do again. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and pick this greens out here in the White House, and then everybody else is outside in the rest of the garden. So I'm going to meet everybody out there. But right now again, I'm just going to go ahead and pick this. Then I'm going to meet everybody outside because, like I said earlier, we have a lot of picking to do to get it done, and we're going to get that going today. So like that, we can share with you what you do after we get done picking. Okay, so now we finished picking. We're getting ready to do what we consider the fun part of gardening. And that is, of course, cleaning out your vegetables. So we've picked today celery, we picked our kale, we picked our spinach, and we picked our collard greens. So right now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to clean your celery. Now we picked it up, so it smells great. I love the way it smells all the time when you get done picking celery, but at the bottom here and throughout the whole thing, since it's outside, it's dirty. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to wash the celery. So generally what I do with the celery is I have a colander here and I put my celery in. And because it's a lot, I'm going to break it up into two bushels. I also like to have it all one direction so that I can get the dirt out easier. Okay, so when you're cleaning your celery, there are 2 ways that you can clean it. Actually, when you're cleaning all the vegetables, there are 2 things you can use, 2 methods. One would be to use the Dawn, and we talked about that in an earlier video, the solution and the ratio to make sure you have just a little bit of Dawn and everything water. Again, the ratio again was half a teaspoon of Dawn, a gallon of water. That's important because you want to make sure your Dawn is very much diluted. Now, the other way you can clean it, which is the way that I do it, is I use vinegar. I use white vinegar, and I use the white vinegar just to wash off because it has been outside. Critters have been crawling on it, and so you want to go ahead and rinse it off. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse off the celery, and then I'm going to wash it, and then I'm going to go ahead and just soak it. Okay, so now the celery is completely rinsed off. I ended up getting a lot of dirt off of it already, and so now I'm going to go ahead and wash it. So, to wash the celery, I'm going to put it in my bowl here. And remember, I'm using the vinegar and water solution. If you're using the Dawn solution, I just want to tell you, you're not really washing it like you're washing your dishes, so you're going to get a big lather and everything like that. That's not what you're doing with the Dawn. The Dawn is like you're spritzing it on, and then you're going to rinse it off. You're going to spritz it on lightly, and you're going to rinse it off. But for me, I'm going to use the vinegar and water solution. So for the vinegar and water solution, I use just a little bit of vinegar. And of course you're saying, well, what's a little bit of vinegar, Simone? What's a little bit? And what I use generally is a teaspoon. And I just sprinkle it around. And I add the water. And that's how I wash it. And if you notice, when you're washing it, because you're washing it with celery and the vinegar, you can smell the celery. You can actually smell the celery scent. I love it. It smells so lovely. But you can smell it, so it's really good. You can't smell the vinegar, but you can tell that the celery is nice and clean. So that's the easiest way to wash it. Okay, so I'm done washing the celery, and now I'm going to do the final stage, and that's going to be soaking it. I poured the water off, as you can see, and I'm just going to go ahead and get my bowl here. And that is the final step. The final step is soaking your vegetable. I pour it in to the next bowl. And when I soak, I add a little salt to the water. And usually the amount of salt that I add to the water, again, is really 2 pinches. And I soak it. I fill the water up here. I'm going to fill it up partly, not all the way, just enough to cover the celery. Again, why am I using the salt in the water? You're going to ask that question. It's another cleansing technique. That's why. So it's another way to cleanse it out, just to make sure that everything, every little critter that could possibly be in the garden is there. And I have now soaked this celery, and it's in here, soaking nice. So it's not a lot of water, just covering the whole plant itself. The other thing I wanted to share with you that I know that I did not tell you is you don't want to use hot water or too cold water. The water I generally like to use is lukewarm. So I'm going to set it out now. Some people, they let their vegetables soak overnight. I myself, if I let it soak for about 3 hours, it's good. Okay, so now that the celery is there soaking nicely, I'm going to go ahead and rinse out these bowls. Because now I'm going to take care of another vegetable, which is our green leafy vegetable, is the collard greens. So I'm going to go ahead and start the process of washing the collard greens. I'm going to share that with you again, how to start with the process of that. Now again, the same thing with the same principle. Collard greens, though, I find that you don't really need to wash them with the Dawn solution because they're a big leaf. The vinegar and water is a good solution to use with that. But I will tell you one big difference. Collard greens is a vegetable that really needs to soak, in my opinion. So I like to soak it because it's something that also kind of stinks, you know, when you pick the collard greens fresh. So I'm going to go ahead and get these collard greens going here. I'm going to start rinsing them off. Let me just grab them over here. And you can see we've been lucky because look at this. Look how big our collard greens are. Palm size. That's generally what we like. Palm size collard greens. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the rinsing process first. And when you're rinsing off the collard greens, because it's such a large vegetable, large leaf, you can really see if there's any kind of little bugs on there. So let's rinse these off. Okay, when I rinse off the collard greens, my preference is to rinse them off one by one so I can check and inspect them myself. So that's really much what I do when I'm rinsing off the collard greens. I like to do one by one. So, collard greens, Because it's such a big leafy vegetable, it's easy to rinse, very easy. And I'm going to go ahead and just shake them right out of the colander. And I'm going to go ahead and get our white bowl again. Switch sinks. Now, if you notice with the collard greens, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of water in there first. And then I'm going to put them in. Then I'm going to pour some more water on top of it. Put the 1 teaspoon of vinegar in it. And wash them off. Okay, so remember, the key thing with collard greens is in the soaking. So I went ahead and washed this off. I'm going to go ahead and drain it out. Let it rest in the colander right here. Shake off all excess water. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse this off. Okay, since I'm going to use this bowl for soaking my collard greens, I'm going to go ahead and fill the water up again partially. I'm going to put my 2 pinches of salt in. Now, mix it around here. Fill up with a little bit more water. Put my collard greens in here to soak. Just as the celery, the same thing with the collard greens is you want to make sure that the water is on top, covering the collard greens. Okay, so it's covered. Nicely covered here. Now, a few things I want to tell you about the collard greens. One is this. In some cases with the collard greens, if you're going to cook the collard greens, many people just go ahead and they cut the stem off and they soak it with the stem off and they soak the leaf. The other thing is, in my case, since I am not getting ready to cook the collard greens, I'm going to freeze them. So in my case, I like to leave the stem on. And I'm going to go ahead and just soak it, rinse it off, and when I rinse it off, get done rinsing it off, after I soaked it, I'm going to go ahead and just put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer. So. Okay, so today I shared with you how to go ahead and go through the process of washing off your vegetables. You remember we have a whole bunch of others that I have to wash off because we picked a whole bunch today. And I'm just going to go ahead and finish those off camera. But you have the principle about how to do it. First, you want to make sure that you rinse. Then you want to make sure that you wash. And then you want to make sure that you soak. Also, again, you also want to make sure that if you use the Dawn solution, you use the Dawn formula, or you use the vinegar and water, whatever your preference is. I also recommend that you use the salt just as another cleaning mechanism. That's why I'm using the salt. So I put the salt in my soaking and that's it. So, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Pinch a Penny Gardener.
Come down to the Sunshine State. We got flowers and veggies aplenty. We'll teach you how to pinch a penny. I'm talking about PinchAPennyGardener. Yeah, PinchAPennyGardener. We'll teach you all you need to know. Don't forget to subscribe and like the show.